Come into this house of worship by the Reverend Carolyn Owen Towle. Come into this house of worship. Come in, bringing all of who you are. Rest and quiet your weak, worn spirit, for you are here to touch again eternal springs of hope and renewal. Calm your hurried pace. For this hour, let the cares, the fretfulness, and the worry be set aside. Forgive yourself, for you are very worthy of moving on, of making new efforts, of trying again. Know that you are not alone. There is strength and caring and support here for you. You will find comfort if you but ask. Look around. You are part of potential community. You can make it what you will. Enter into this space of worship.
As we light our chalice, we share our conveyance. We promise to listen and learn together with compassion, curiosity, and an open mind. Engage in creating a warm and welcoming community, work together and beyond our walls to address social and environmental challenges, and with our time, talent, and treasure, support our church and its mission.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Pam Romancic, and my pronouns are she and hers, and I serve the Unitarian Church in Hinsdale, Illinois. It is so good to gather with you this morning. We gather as a community that believes in the power of love, a love which upholds and sustains no matter what is going on in the world around us. Tomorrow is a national holiday honoring the life and work of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's a day to remember his life, his untimely death, and all of the inspiration that he left for us. It's a day to offer our own energy towards making the world a little better place. There are numerous events online that you can attend. The Reverend Barber, who's the head of the Poor People's Campaign, which has picked up the mantle from Dr. King, is offering a prayer service tonight and a national interfaith service of love, light, and leadership tomorrow at 2. You can also visit the King Center to find out ideas for offering your own service on a day that asks us to live the love that we speak and to make it real in our world. Links to all of these events are on our community news page on our website. On Tuesday, we're going to be joining churches in our area and all across the country in observing a moment of remembrance for all who have died from the coronavirus pandemic. I'll be at the church with luminaries lit for the event at 4:30 p.m. You're invited to take a moment of silence in the midst of your day to think of all those who are suffering on so many levels and those dear ones who have lost their lives. If you enjoyed today's service, I hope you'll share it with someone that you know, someone who might appreciate support during this challenging time. Our past services from 2020 can be found on the church's YouTube page, and you can revisit favorites or find ones you missed. Now, even with everything going on in the world, our church still has many meetings and gatherings going on this week. So I encourage you to visit our website, www.hinsdaleunitarian.org, and to follow us on social media. January's Touchstone came out last week, and we are accepting submissions for February. So if you have something you want to share with us, please send it in now. Now, if you're new and would like to receive regular communications, you can leave your information in the chat box here on Zoom, or you can click the contact button on our website. Each week, everyone's invited to stay for a brief virtual coffee hour after the service. We split into chat rooms, and you can either respond to the message, get to know some new folks, or catch up on our shared but distant lives. One reminder is that your staff is still working from home until it becomes safe to all gather together in person. And unfortunately, technology is the bane of our lives. Our phone system is somewhat archaic and has not been acting well lately. So the best way to reach any of us is via email. All contact information is again on the website. Today, we extend our deep sympathies to the family of Scotty Soria, a longtime member of the congregation and one of the founding members of the play reading group. She passed away last Monday. She lived a full and rich life and was grateful for the companionship of Nancy Keene, who has visited her faithfully each week over the past 3 years, representing the love of our church and becoming good friends in the process. So you might often also want to say, extend your condolences to Nancy. Also, we send love and care and big virtual hugs to Susan and Jeff Hebel and their family. Susan's dad, Ted Morrison, he died on January 3rd, and then her mom, Sandy Morrison, died on January 11th. Words cannot describe the love coming to surround you during this time of grief. They lived amazing lives, and they had a beautiful service yesterday on Zoom. And one more, this coming Saturday will be the memorial service for Betty Mathias. It's on 2 o'clock. Please continue to send pictures and memories of Betty to me this week so we can celebrate her life all together next week. Now, a little later in the service, we'll hold a space for meditation and prayer. So if you or someone you know is in need of support, please do let us know. You can type your intention in all caps in the chat box or contact myself or email the office. I want to thank Megan Griffin, who's today's worship associate, and our regulars, Jamie Passman, Suzanne Williams, and Jean Schaefer. This work is only here because of their efforts. Thank you. As we stand on the cusp of a brand new year, I invite you now to be caught up by Pam Fodor telling us what's going on with RE.
That Good morning, friends. It's great to be back with you again. Let's find out what our tool of the week is. This week, it's gloves. Gloves represent the tool of love. Even the word glove, G-L-O-V-E, has the word love in it. Unitarian Universalism is a faith that values justice, compassion, and equity in human relations. We recognize many different ways to express love, just like there are many different types of gloves. We value the words of Francis David. We need not think alike to love alike. It's good to be reminded of this quote during this time in our world. Enjoy your week.
Ware lecture at UU General Assembly in 1966. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I would like to use as a subject the church remaining awake during a great revolution. I'm sure that each of you has read that arresting little story from the pen of Washington Irving entitled Rip Van Winkle. One thing that we usually remember about the story of Rip Van Winkle is that he slept 20 years. But there is another point in that story, which is almost always completely overlooked. It is the sign on the inn of the little town on the Hudson from which Rip went up into the mountains for his long sleep. When he went up, the sign had a picture of King George III of England. When he came down, the sign had a picture of George Washington, the first president of the United States. When Rip Van Winkle looked up at the picture of George Washington, he was amazed. He was completely lost. He knew not who he was. This incident reveals to us that the most striking thing about the story of Rip Van Winkle is not merely that he slept 20 years, but that he slept through a revolution. While he was peacefully snoring up in the mountains, a revolution was taking place in the world that would alter the face of human history. Yet Rip knew nothing about it. He was asleep. One of the greatest misfortunes of history is that all too many individuals and institutions find themselves in a great period of change, and yet fail to achieve the new attitudes and outlooks that the new situation demands. There is nothing more tragic than to sleep through a revolution, and there can be no gainsaying of the fact that a social revolution is taking place in our world today. We see it in other nations, in the demise of colonialism. We see it in our own nation, in the struggle against racial segregation and discrimination. And as we notice this struggle, we are aware of the fact that a social revolution is taking place in our midst. Victor Hugo once said that there is nothing more powerful in all the world than an idea whose time has come. The idea whose time has come today is the idea of freedom and human dignity. And so all over the world, we see something of a freedom explosion, and this reveals to us that we are in the midst of revolutionary times. An older order is passing away, and a new order is coming into being. Thus ends the reading.
I invite you now to settle into your chairs, to relax your body, to take a deep breath in, and then a cleansing, releasing breath out into the world around you. Allow all the anxiety and fear that has built up in your body over these past weeks to just let go. Allow them to Release down along your spine, down through the bottoms of your feet into the rich, dark earth below, the rich earth that can hold whatever is resting on your heart this morning. Our words today of meditation and prayer come from the Reverend Robert Weston. He writes, I will lift up my voice and sing, whatever may befall me. I will still follow the light which kindles song. I will listen to the music arising out of grief and joy alike. I will not deny my voice to the song, for in the depth of winter, song, like the bud peeping through the dry crust of earth, brings back memory, and it creates anew the hope and anticipation of spring. Out of a world that seems barren of hope, song decries beauty in the shape of leafless trees. Lift our eyes to the distant mountain peaks, which, even if we see them not, remind us that they are there, waiting, and still calling us to come up higher, out of the destruction of our dear hopes, out of the agony of heartbreak. Song rises once more to whisper to us that even this is but the stage setting for a new beginning, and that we shall yet take pieces of our hearts and put them together in a pattern of deeper and truer lights and shades. I will lift up my voice in song, for in singing I myself am renewed, and the darkness of night is touched by the promise of a new dawn, for the light shall come again. We now turn the portion of our service when we introduce our offering. While we're able to gather together, we would have one Share the Plate Sunday each month. But unfortunately, as the pandemic rolled on, those did not bring in very much to donate to our shared recipients. So now we've decided to remind you each week, but please don't feel called to give each week. We invite everyone to give out of the abundance that you feel in your lives and in your heart. And if you are not in a place of abundance, know that your church is here to help you. Know that if you need assistance with groceries, with an emergency expense, with something unexpected, you can call on us. There is an emergency relief fund for that very purpose. So please contact me or call the church office and let us know so that we can help. Now, we're going to let our food empowerment program people go ahead and introduce their amazing institution to you, and hope you can be generous.
Hi, I'm Lauren Ornelas. I'm the founder of Food Empowerment Project. I wanted to thank you so much for your support of the work that we do here at Food Empowerment Project. As a vegan food justice organization, you know the importance of the work that we do to help non-human animals not be part of our food system. As vegans, we understand the importance of where our food comes from, and so part of our work is also done to help farm workers who pick our food. We're also trying to get people not to buy chocolate sourced from the worst forms of slavery and child labor so that we can eat chocolate that is truly cruelty-free and isn't at the hands of the suffering or human animals or non-human animals as well. We're also doing our best to work to help those communities, mostly Black and brown communities, that lack access to healthy foods, to ensure that everybody has rights to healthy foods, but also has the ability to go vegan and eat their ethics if they want to. So thank you so much for all that you've done to support our work, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Hi, I'm Sharanya Krishna Prasad, and I'm the Executive Director of Food Empowerment Project. I want to thank the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale for featuring FEP and for collecting donations to support our work. FEP is a nonprofit organization, which means we're only able to do the work that we do as a result of contributions from wonderful supporters like you. And every donation makes a huge difference and will help us continue our work to create a more just and sustainable world in 2021 and beyond. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Mooney, serving on the board of the Unitarian Church of Hinsdale. This is a time in our service when we remember the good things this church does in the world and invite you to help support our work. You can go to our website, which is www.hinsdaleunitarian.org, and click on the donate button, or you can simply send your check in to the church office. I support this church for so many reasons. The members and leaders of this community inspire me to think differently, learn more, and most importantly, take action and consider ways I can live differently. I know myself well enough to know that I wouldn't be learning about and doing some of the work I'm involved in now all by myself. And for that encouragement and support, I am very grateful. Now, even though we can't be together, I invite you to say our offering words together. This church is made up of all of us. It is what we learn together, the work we do together, and the fun we have together. It is what we share with one another, with the people around us, and with all of the world. Thank you.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Scarred by Struggle, Transformed by Hope, by Joan Chittister. Every major spiritual revolution known to mankind, in fact, is based on the bedrock of hope. Embedded in each is a spirituality of hope that imbues their followers with the power to believe in life, to cope with life, to live life, whatever the burdens that come with the daily dyings of life. The greater the hope, the greater the appreciation of life now, the greater the confidence in the future, whatever it is. But if struggle is the process of evolution from spiritual emptiness to spiritual wisdom, hope is the process as well. Hope, the response of the spiritual person to struggle, takes us from the risk of inner stagnation, of emotional despair, to a total transformation of life. Every stage of the process of struggle is a call to move from spiritual torpor to spiritual vitality. The spirituality of struggle gives birth to the spirituality of hope. Despair is a spiritual disease into which is built its antidote, hope. It is a matter of refusing to die at exactly the moment when we are being offered new life. Hope is not a denial of reality, but it is also not some kind of spiritual elixir. It is not a placebo infused out of nowhere. Hope is a series of small actions that transforms darkness into light. It is putting one foot in front of the other when we can find no reason to do so at all. The spiritual task of life is to feed the hope that comes out of despair. Hope is not something to be found outside of us. It lies in the spiritual life we cultivate within. Thus ends the reading.
Thanks, Megan. Hope is not something to be found outside of us. It lies in the spiritual life that we cultivate within. How are you, my friends? Have you been remembering to breathe, to take walks, to hold your own connection to hope and to the whole of life, even in the midst of this extraordinary time in which we find ourselves? Because yes, it is unsettling. It is unpredictable. It's unnerving to see so many of our fellow Americans willing to use violence and threats to hold on to an illusion of life that served them, that served some portion of our country. I have to say, I didn't expect it, but maybe I should have, because the world is changing. It is becoming in actuality the pluralistic and diverse place that it has always claimed to be. In a way, the very enormity of the unrest can be encouraging if you view it from the wide-angle lens of history. No real change or evolution happens without a tremendous release of energy. Just like tectonic plates moving slowly, slowly, until they finally and abruptly snap into a new position. When big change happens, a lot of normal life is upended. And right now, we are in the middle of it. We are watching institutions quiver and quake. We are watching long-standing injustices begin to tumble and fall. We are riding the buckling of one reality and hoping to find our footing as we transition into a new one. Many people were kind of fooled into thinking that when Barack Obama was elected president, that was the transition we were waiting for. We have a Black president, right? Everything's good now. But these last 4 years have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that his presidency was only a surface change. It was a foreshadowing of the future, and it scared the bejesus out of a whole lot of people. But it was only a warning trembler of what was yet to come. The forces of the status quo have been pulling and holding and trying to hold the country back from the direction in which it's headed. And while superficial things changed, the forces deep underground continued to try to let that movement stop, or try to stop that movement. Today that's what seems to be true, because really, we don't know. We are in the place of shifting and cracking and creaking and breaking. And much of what we thought was solid and real is going down. And we're not still sure what the end result's going to be. We've learned, to my sorrow, that some percentage of the population, much larger than I dreamed, would rather burn it all down and wreck everything rather than accept the change. The anarchists, the boogaloo boys, the media moguls who continue to make money from fear-inducing sensationalism, even at the cost of maintaining our democracy. The fringes on both far right and far left have no hesitation in destroying life as we know it, even if they don't know or don't have anything to offer in its place. But luckily, that is not most of our neighbors and friends. While we have become a divided country, we have divided into heavily divided sections manipulated by folks seeking power from those sections, at our heart, we still have much in common. We have to remember that. That's where our hope has to come from. Because much like the shifting landscape of the 1960s, didn't it just feel like Dr. King's speech and words to the Unitarians in 1966 could be spoken today with little change at all? Just like then, we stand at a crossroads between living the values that we claim and maintaining the inequality at the cost of our own integrity. Sadly, some have chosen the latter path. Tomorrow is the national holiday honoring the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But you'd hardly know it from reading the news. If he's there, it's buried under a lot more salacious news stories that are all over the place. But Dr. King would feel at home if he was still here today. He knew what it was to stand at those crossroads. He knew the danger of standing up for what's right when so many in the country do not want to acknowledge the difference between who we are and who we say we are. On the night before he died, he gave his last speech addressed to the striking garbage workers in Memphis, Tennessee. And as you heard earlier in his inimitable style, Dr. King shared that he had been to the mountaintop. He had seen the promised land, and he wasn't afraid any longer. After having his home bombed, after being stabbed, after being threatened daily, he had found some peace knowing that the world was indeed moving in the right direction, that it would get there, even if he wasn't there to see it. It wasn't going quietly, it wasn't going smoothly. It was raucous and violent, and there would be a lot of harm done in the process. But he trusted that, like the Israelites looking for the promised land, we will get there. Now, it has been nearly 60 years since that speech, and we have come a lot closer than we were during Dr. King's time, but we still have a ways to go. I was at church a few weeks back, crossing the alley, when a woman in a car pulled up and asked me if I was from this church. I said, sure, yes. And she said she wanted to tell me how mad our Black Lives Matter sign makes her each day when she drives by. I didn't get the impression that she lived between new people in Hinsdale, which is kind of funny since so few of us actually live there. When I asked why, a whole bunch of stuff came pouring out. One, that her brothers and family members were police officers and we should say all lives matter. One, that we didn't know what we were talking about out here in the suburbs. But her main point, which she repeated more than once, was that instead of putting up a sign in Hinsdale, we should open a coffee shop in Englewood and provide jobs to the people we claim to care about. I did my best to listen, knowing that no one is ever changed by arguing without finding some common ground. I acknowledged that police officers, perhaps her brother and family members, have really difficult jobs, and that they might well be decent, compassionate people on their jobs. I affirmed that her work in the South Side, where she worked side by side with Black identified people of color, was good, and she should be honored for that work. I even conceded that it was possible that she herself was not racist, while acknowledging that I was, because, of course, as a human being who has grown up in this society, I hold unconscious bias, despite all the work I've done to eradicate it. But she wasn't buying it. She was full of righteous anger, which doesn't make a lot of room for listening. We shouldn't be able to uphold Black lives as being threatened in any way behind other lives, and we didn't have a right if we weren't willing to move out of the safe enclave of Hinsdale. We managed to remain polite until she drove away, and I don't think I made any dent beyond allowing her the space to vent all the anger that had built up as she drove past our sign. It did surprise her that most of our members don't live in Hinsdale and represent a wide swath of communities, but nobody actually lives in Englewood, at least not that I'm aware of. And as I pondered the interaction, thinking of all the great things I might have said that still wouldn't have made a difference, I did have to acknowledge one criticism. I had to open myself up to listening to the other side. You see, underneath her professed lack of prejudice was an unspoken accusation that if we actually lived with these people, we wouldn't be as quick to defend them. Each day, she and her brothers face extreme poverty and bad parenting and drug abuse and gang violence. Living in the midst of it is very different than looking on from a distance. She's right. Much like it's so much easier for those right-to-life folks to love innocent fetuses rather than stand up for the already born and imperfect humans, it is easier to defend the idea of human equality when we're far away from the results of so many years of oppression and inhumanity of humans to other humans. Up close and personal, it is heartrending and discouraging and frustrating, but it can also be human-making. It might be a project that we could think about taking on, some hands-on project of offering jobs to folks in a neighborhood like Englewood. But at the same time, understanding why people are in the place they are is a very, very important first step in changing the system that puts them there in the first place. This encounter with this woman helped me clarify that the work we do and the shortfalls that are always there. I shared with her the social work parable that explains why everyone doesn't open a coffee shop in Englewood. For those who hadn't heard it before, it's about a group of folks picnicking by a river, and when they see a child floating by, flailing and drowning in the middle of the river, and they all pull together and they rescue that child, and they feel really good about themselves. But then, as soon as they sit down, another child comes by, and they go and rescue that one, and then another. And they rescue all these distressed children, but they start going, what's happening? Why are all these children in the river? And finally, they decide to go upstream and see what the problem is and stop the children from falling in the river in the first place. It's also akin to caring about polar bears, but instead of flying up to the Arctic Circle to rescue one, deciding to put your energy and resources into fighting global climate change right now. You can make a difference where you are. I think the bumper sticker says, bloom where you're planted. There are many points in the cycle of life where each of us can offer our love and our care for creating a better world for those around us and ourselves. Each of us has to learn all we can. We have to evaluate our own gifts and talents, and then we can find a path forward to creating that just and sustainable future. Which brings us back to where we are right now, riding out the biggest earthquake any of us alive have ever seen. The world is shifting and turning, and we have a couple of options. We can freeze, cower in a doorway, and wait for it all pass, maybe sleep our way through it like Dr. King's story of Rip Van Winkle, or we can follow the example of Dr. King and decide to make a difference in this world. Dr. King's national holiday has become a day to offer service to the world. It's called Make a Difference Day, and people come up with service projects and uniting events all across the country. Traditionally, a group of folks from UCH has traveled into the city to attend a Community Renewal Society assembly, but not this year because of the pandemic. So the King Center in Atlanta lists different ways that each of us can make a difference from the safety of our homes. Their website states, without the hassle of finding parking or forgetting your face mask at home, one way to spread goodwill on MLK Day is by making at-home care packages for those in need of cheer. They offer Operation Gratitude, which offers a number of virtual ways to spread joy to frontline workers and military members. The organization has set up an Amazon wish list. After purchase, items like socks and sunscreen and beef jerky are shipped to Operation Gratitude. From there, care packages are assembled and sent to those on the front lines. This is just one of the many ideas on the King Center website. So you can go there and figure out a way to be a light of love and care in a world that does seem off the rails. Because really, at its heart, this is all any of us can ever do. We can pay attention what is in front of us. We can inform ourselves as best as possible so that we can be part of the solution rather than perpetuating the problem. And then we can offer whatever we are able to offer. The woman who stopped me wants the world to be a better place. She just thinks that she has more answers and that we should listen to her. And she isn't aware of the societal blinders restricting her vision. Each of us has our own blinders, and we also have the ability to peel them back if we make that choice. We may not change the world or stop the earth buckling shifts in our country's social structures, but we can be present to the needs of those around us. We can stay awake to the gifts we have, the skills we can offer, and we can send love and care instead of perpetuating fear and anger. Following Dr. King's example, we can choose harmony, we can choose light, we can choose love. Amen, and blessed be.
We're going to conclude now with a prayer for Martin Luther King Jr. Sunday that was written by the Reverend Kathleen Rollins. Spirit of justice, God who befriends those who stand upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. We are grateful to be together this morning. We are here especially to remember the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but not only him, for there were thousands of unnamed women and men who put their bodies and their lives on the line so that all may be free. And yet we know freedom comes at a cost. And we know that racism and xenophobia, ageism and ableism, sexism and classism, all of these often unacknowledged realities prevent us from fully knowing one another, from fully creating the beloved community spoken of by prophets and ordinary people alike. May the work of Dr. King continue to eradicate injustice wherever and whenever we encounter it. May we continue to speak out against injustice, to speak even if we're afraid our words will not be heard or welcomed. May the spirit of Dr. King continue to flow through our daily living, and may we have the courage of Dr. King as we stand up for justice, for reconciliation, for truth, despite challenge or controversy. Dr. King went to the mountaintop. He saw the promised land, and he reassured us that we will get there one day. May that be no paradisal dream, but a reality in our own time. May it be so, and amen.
Here's a song you can help me on. A great song. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. 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 Someday, someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. And the most important verse was the one they made up in Montgomery, Alabama. Said, we are not afraid. There's a lot of people in this world, they know what's right and what's wrong, but they're not going to do anything about it. And somebody has to be willing to sing, we are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are
Our final words are from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He wrote, "Hatred confuses life, but love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life, and love illuminates it." As we extinguish our chalice today, shine your love out in this world that needs it so desperately. Thank you.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of its truth, the warmth of this community, nor the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world. Thank you.